Blog Talk Radio.
You've been walking the same old roads for miles and miles. You've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lie. You've been trying to fill the same old holes inside. When there's a better life, there's a better life. If you got He's a pain taker. If you feel lost, He's a way maker. Freedom, saving. Yes, He is. If you got change, yeah. We all search for the light of day in the dead of night. We all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We all run with things we know just ain't right. But there's a better life. There's a better life.
All right, you're listening to Show Talk with Angela Butler. Today, the interview is with Senator Adam Ollier. He is the senator for Wayne County, including Detroit, Grosse Pointe, Hamtramck, Harper Woods, Highlands Park. He is in the Michigan District. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing during this pandemic?
It's been interesting times. Detroit was especially hard hit, and there were a number of weeks there, particularly at the beginning, where every day I felt like I was getting bad news. The first person to die from COVID-19 here in Detroit was a friend, and I was with him when he was contagious. So it was interesting times, and I'm glad that we have turned the page on a number of those places, and now we're getting to a better place. But overall, I'm happy and healthy. I've got my first dose of the vaccine, and most of my friends and relatives in the city of Detroit have been able to do so. The city of Detroit's been doing a great job vaccinating its residents, and has continued to expand access and care. And, my wife and I welcomed our second child right before the election. So 2020 had its share of ups along with a lot of downs.
All right, so you welcomed your second child. That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So with the pandemic, you said a lot of people are being vaccinated in your district, or is it in the state of Michigan, period?
In the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit has done a really good job with vaccinations.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I'm sorry about your friend dying.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So what are you doing to help low-income families and women? I know what you're doing because I've read up on you, but let everybody else know what you're doing and about your website.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Governor's Poverty Task Force, which has really been tasked with trying to address how we deal with poverty and its solutions. And one of the things that we recognize, or at least I hope everyone recognizes, is that children are more likely to be impoverished, and it's a community that we really haven't done enough to address child poverty. And much of that spews and comes from our inability and unwillingness to make a concerted difference in ensuring that women make the same amount as men do. And just getting rid of the gender pay gap will go a long way to lift a number of families and children, particularly out of poverty. So I've been working a lot on the gender pay gap issues, on child care, on maternity and paternity leave, as we look at those things as, kind of big reasons that women are coming out of the workforce, particularly under the pandemic, we've seen a significant number of women who have left the workforce because they had to take care of the children. And, going back to the gender pay gap, if they're making 70 cents on the dollar to their partner or spouse, it just makes sense for them to come home because they're making less money. And we've lost a significant amount of people, particularly women, in the workforce. And we've seen that from the pandemic. In the last quarter, all the jobs nationwide that were lost by women.
Wow. I did not know that.
No.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I did not know that it was nationwide. I did not realize that. So how do you feel about Mr. Biden talking about or proposing $300 a month per child?
I think it's a great idea. I think we should be doing way more than that. I think every time somebody is proposing or working on solutions that are going to give people more resource and more space to do the things they need to do, we should be saying yes and to continue to push forward. The president has been proposing some student loan relief, and we should be doing that. The $1,400 additional payments, just stimulus checks to every resident across the country who makes under $150,000 for a couple, or $75,000 as an individual. We should be doing it. And as we talk about these kind of simple things, that $300 that they're proposing could raise another, I think it's 50 million children out of poverty. It's astounding how much those kind of dollars could make a difference, and why we should be doing them immediately.
Yes, sir. Yes. What is your view of the stimulus?
I think it was good programming, or it's a good plan. We should continue to do it. I think the quicker that we can get that additional $1,400 to people, the better people are going to be off. I think we should have done it more frequently last year, and I think this should just be the down payment on what are concerted efforts to continue to get money in people's hands so they can continue to do the things they need to do.
So you're for the people?
Absolutely.
You're not against the people. You're
No.
not saying I've been elected and everything's for the rich.
No.
And you are a Democrat.
I am.
Yes. All right. So that's wonderful. That's good news. I'm glad you guys are in office.
Me too.
I'm glad you won the elections too, the House and Senate, and presidency. So, how do you feel about Mr. Donald Trump not being impeached?
I don't think there was ever a legitimate expectation that 17 Senate Republicans were going to make the right decision and impeach the president for what are clearly high crimes and misdemeanors. So I wish I could say I was surprised or frustrated, but that is what I expected from people who don't want to make sure that people, parents have paternity leave, that don't want to make sure that the minimum wage is a wage that is enough for people to live and support themselves, one that promote and continue to champion causes and issues that disproportionately negatively impact my constituents. So I am not surprised that this is how they respond, or this is what they wanted to do.
All right. So do you have any concerns about being in Washington, D.C. or there in Detroit after January 6, 2021 attempt to overthrow the American government?
Well, as someone who goes to the Michigan State Capitol in Lansing, we've seen these kinds of individuals protesting and carrying rifles, because in the Michigan Capitol you can carry a firearm. Up until just recently, you could openly carry. Now you can only concealed carry, which I don't think is making us any safer. But we all have an obligation to reclaim the safety of these spaces by not allowing folks who would cause terrorism and the push for all these kind of things the way they have to intimidate us. But the only way we're going to do that is if we call out the people who support and encourage and sustain not only their membership but their naked aggression. And so I've continued to push at the state level for, more heightened security and more increased police presence. And they're continuing to do the same types of things at the Capitol where we are hardening our targets.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I'm glad you were fine.
Thank you.
I like what you said about resources. People in America do need more resources, especially in rural areas, such as the one that I live in. People do need more resources. And the money would be a great help that Mr. Biden and you and the governor there in Michigan are talking about doing and implementing and have implemented. So I think it's great.
Thank you.
What you're doing. So what is your policy on temporary assistance for needy families? Sir? Hello?
Sorry, I bumped in the mute button. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I think we need to do significant investment in TANF. I'm working on legislation here to expand access and eligibility and increase the benefit. TANF dollars need to be spent on people who need them. And over the last couple of years, maybe the last decade, I think that those dollars have started to be spent on individuals who are more fluent or for college education when they really should be designed and implemented and used specifically for people who are struggling to survive and to make it to day by day.
All right. So basically, you're saying to lift the poor up.
Absolutely.
Those that are struggling, those that are low income, those that are in poverty.
Absolutely.
And I think the $300 a month is great for families with children. But do you ever think about single people?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the way we've got to address this is to figure out what are acceptable standards for people. And I think we spend a lot of time talking about children and mothers because those are the people who are at the highest incidence of poverty. But it's very difficult for a single man to get shelter individually, to find, access to homeless shelters and those kind of things. So I think there is a lot of work to be done to protect everybody. Our social safety network is wildly inadequate.
Yes, single people need resources too. Single people working at McDonald's, Subway, people on disability, they need resources also. People without children.
Absolutely.
Without husbands and wives, or they're divorced, or widowed, or just single.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So, is there anything being implemented that you know about for single people?
So the legislation that I'm working on that addresses some of the benefits cliffs, and when we talk about benefits cliffs, that is the idea that, and these are just arbitrary numbers, but you were eligible for TANF and SNAP, which is the Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program. More commonly, people consider it food stamps, child care benefits, or any number of these programs, and you go from making $19,999 to $20,000, and you're no longer eligible. It's this idea that you make $1 more, $2 more, and you lose $10 or $15 or $5,000 worth of benefits. So you have a number of people who always stay under that eligibility cap because they can't afford to make a couple dollars more and lose all these benefits. And so that applies to people who are single and those with families. But it's something that we've got to address and that I'll be working on right now.
Okay, is that for Michigan?
It is.
For Michigan. Do you think you could get the Democrats in Washington, D.C. and throughout the United States to go along with that?
Well, I think there are a number of legislators across the country who are working on this issue, and I hope it becomes a bipartisan issue because there are poor people in big cities, there are poor people in rural communities, there are poor white folks, there are poor black folks, Latinos, there are poor Muslims and Catholics, and atheists and Jews, being poor is not about a demographic, and our solutions should not be red or blue. Too often they have been. But I hope that we can turn the corner on that, and I'm excited about legislators across the country doing that.
Wow. That's hope. That's hope. That's going to give a lot of people hope.
I hope so.
If something like that happens, because single people cannot get the earned income credit like that, but per child. So basically, how many terms have you been in office for the Detroit, Michigan district?
I'm in my second term now.
You're in your second term, and you're really making a difference because I read about you. You're really doing great things. I researched you.
I appreciate that.
Yes, you're good. You care about the people. You're for the people.
I'm trying.
Yes, you're trying. So maybe you could answer a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the Republicans the way they are towards American people? And why are so many people for them?
I guess that's a really that's a
hard question.
You know, and it's hard because I think we look at Republicans like a monolith, right? I like to believe that in a number of the Republicans who I serve in the legislature with, I think are good people and are doing the things that they want to do for the right reasons. And we agree, for the most part, on 80, 90% of stuff, but spend all our time talking about the 10, 15% we don't. And I've tried to focus on the stuff that we do agree, right? Like, we do agree that we send too many people to prison. And so it's like, all right, well, how do we send less people to prison? How do we get more people's records clear? How do we make sure that they can go back to work? How do we do a better job of taking care of people and their families? And when we can get the discussion away from the hot button, supercharged issues and focus on people and taking care of them, we're able to get things done. And so I think it's really important that we make our discussions that way, that they are focused solely on taking care of people, right? Like, when, in a traditional sense, in normal spaces, when you talk about the military, people support, you hear people say they support the troops, right? And they do that because they are not they should not be controversial. But you say those same things about the police, and it engenders different things, right? So I'm a black man that lives in America. My experiences with the police are not the same as my white Republican colleague from rural America. But that doesn't mean all police are bad. I probably called the police more in my life than he ever has. And been on both sides of those discussions of needing the police to respond, but also be uncomfortable and treated in less than human ways by police officers. And so it's trying to find the balance where we are working on the things that we can get done, because I represent a constituency that needs things. They need their lives to be better than they were yesterday and today. And the only way that happens, at least for me in Michigan, where I serve in the minority, is to work with Republicans to get those things done. And the better that we can focus on the people who send us, the people who elect us, the people who need stuff, I think the better policy we're going to get done.
Speaking on and about the police, the killings, the murders that have been displayed on TV, through video, mobile phone, are horrible.
They are.
And they haven't stopped. How do you feel about anything that President Biden is doing to help with that? Has there been anything that you know of that he has did?
It's a process, and it's going to take us some time, and I think we've got to give President Biden some space and some grace to continue to move forward. So I'm optimistic that his heart's in the right place, that they want to see the reform and the change, but it also has to move through Congress. And the only way we're going to see that real change is through legislation, and the legislative process is slow.
Yes, it has moved through the legislature. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you feel as a black man? You said some of what you feel, but how do you have sons? Do you have daughters? You said you were a father.
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old son.
So, what are your fears? You have any fears for them?
I have tons of fears for them, and every day I try and do my best to make sure that they are alleviated and addressed by the work that I'm doing, and that's why I do the work. So, there remain lots of issues around those kids, right? Like I don't want during these moments I had to explain, or I was sitting there on the couch while some of these the very beginning first Black Lives Matter protests this summer in Detroit that kind of led to this violence, and they were tear gassing downtown. I was sitting up trying to explain it to my, at the time, 2-year-old daughter, and it didn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess it wasn't what I'm saying. It didn't make sense to me that I was trying to explain these complex issues to my 2-year-old like she could understand it, but I couldn't help it because I was processing at the same time. And I guess the thing that I hope is that my children have to have less difficult conversations with their children. Because as I think back to all the conversations I had to have with my parents, all the things that they had to tell me were going to be different because I was black, all the spaces that they had to tell me to be careful for, I just hope I don't have to do that with my kids, because those spaces will be safer, because those spaces will be welcoming and open. And so it's my job to open those doors. It's my job to make those spaces safe, because that's what being a parent is about, and being a legislator is about doing that for my people.
Yes, sir. So, Senator Ollier, I understand what you're saying about the future.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, I'm going to give my opinion on what you just said. Unless a person's heart changes, then it's hard to combat hate for no reason. When people hate for no reason, just because of the color of a person's skin or their ethnicity or their hair. So how do you feel about Governor Gretchen Whitmer, her recommendation for the fiscal year 2022?
I think the governor's executive budget recommendation was excellent. She prioritized a lot of things that matter a lot to me, to include, expanded child care access, a program I've been working on at Focus Hope. It's finally going to get funded. I think she did a great job. I'm excited. I'll be supporting it. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, it's one of the things that I'm really excited about working on.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's good news. All right. So she's focusing on issues that matter to hardworking Detroiters. I think that is wonderful. She's also focusing on COVID-19 that disproportionately affected the black community and specifically Detroit. And you are in support of that. I think it's called HOPE, Focus Hope.
Yep. I have been advocating for Focus Hope inclusion in the budget, and have been working really hard for them. They're a program, they're a provider in my district, and I've been able to work a lot with them.
All right. So what does Focus Hope do?
Focus Hope does a ton. So Focus Hope does a variety. They do a variety of social programs. They do food assistance. They do senior deliveries. They've focused on racial and economic inclusion. They do job training. They start with manufacturing space, do truck driving. They do tons.
There have been a lot of people out of work in America, not just Detroit. See self-employment and jobs coming back anytime soon?
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see, some of those things happen. It's not necessarily always going to be a fast process, but if we get the type of investment from the federal government in people, I think we'll see the type of impact that we need to see. If the federal government doesn't step up and provide relief, we're going to continue to struggle.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Black History Month, so I'm honored that you're on Show Talk with Angela Butler.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on Show Talk with Angela Butler. I just have one or two more questions, and I'm going to end the interview. It has to do with some of the things that there in Detroit. You said there had been tear gas in Detroit. Was it by the police?
Yeah.
My goodness. Because they were protesting. Marching. People have a right to peaceful protest.
I agree wholeheartedly.
When the police break the laws, it seems to be all right. But when ordinary citizens break the laws, it's not all right. So that's just the way it is. So how do you feel about reform?
What do you mean?
Criminal reform for the police, putting them in a database when so they can't just go down the road and work for another police department after they murdered someone.
I think having robust background checks for law enforcement officers is really important. And I think it's important that we know where people are. You know, the prosecutor here in Wayne County has gone above and beyond that and also published a list of individuals who are police officers who have lied, on the stand or in court, so that they will not be believed in court and hopefully not hired in some of these other jurisdictions as well.
Do you think it's feasible or realistic to expect policemen to go into a database, a national database? Or do you think it's unnecessary, that it's not warranted, that there are still a lot of good cops?
I think there are lots. I think most cops are good cops. That does not prevent or in any way, shape, or form make it less necessary to have ways to check and track the bad cops.
Yes, sir. Because they're really doing harm to the legal system. Because when they kill like that and when they plant things on people, when they mistreat people and send people to prison, some people should be in prison, but not all people. So what I'm saying is they're making the community afraid of them. And that's causing even more deaths. People are afraid of the police. And that is why they're running. They're being shot in the back. They're doing this, and they're good police officers, and because I have them in my family, but people are scared. People are scared to call the police. I get nervous at a red light when I know my tag is being run.
Mm-hmm.
I get nervous if I'm with someone on a date and he has an out-of-state tag and the police are behind us. Here where I live, there have been 2 black men that have been shot because they said this is the war, the Civil War, the Second Civil War. There's been a lady in Defuniak Springs, Florida, who's been paralyzed and shot. That may not seem like a lot of people, but it is for small rural areas like this,
mm-hmm.
where everyone is kind of separated. Don't get me wrong, we have biracial marriages and relationships here too, but these areas are separated. So when they do that, that sends fear through the community because we're so separated. And everybody's wondering, well, how did they get to them? We stay on this side of town. I stay on a certain side of town. They call it a bad neighborhood. And it makes black people sometimes feel that way too.
Mhm.
But there have been NBA and NFL players who have come out of these neighborhoods. There have been actors, doctors, lawyers that have come out of these neighborhoods. So they can't be all bad.
Yeah.
So the neighborhoods can't be all bad where black people live.
They certainly aren't.
So basically, I know you can do nothing about this. But I'm just saying, when things like that happen, it hurts all police officers. The good ones, too.
Well, the people it hurts the most are the community that lose folks and have to deal with it. And so that's what we've really got to do, work on to address.
I have police officers, former detectives, in my family. And they killed no one. I interview the police all the time. I have Mr. Wilson. He's part of the Black Law Enforcement Professionals.
Mhm.
The National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers, Mr. Charles P. Wilson.
Mhm.
And he talks about things that are, since he has over 10,000 members, of black and Latino ethnicity who are members. He talks about the concern the black lawyers have and the things they're doing. Right now, they are working to make sure a bill isn't passed and get it out to the public. On my show last time, he's been on 4 or 5 times. He was discussing the Senate bill SB 66, sponsored by Senator Rick Bradenton of the state of Missouri. He said the bill, if passed, will give law enforcement officers the right to drive over protesters such as the Black Lives Matter organization or other people who are protesting. Also, citizens of the protesters, if the protesters are in the way, they will have the right to run into them or drive over them without liability, even if death or injury. So it's things like that don't make any sense.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And it's people like you, Mr. Adam Ollier, and Mr. Charles F. Wilson of the Black Law Enforcement Officers who are needed.
Yep.
There should be more black people running for office.
I agree.
Yes, sir. All right, so I'm going to end the show. Thank you for coming on Show Talk with Angela Butler, Senator Ollier.
My pleasure. Have a good one.
You too, sir. All right, everyone, you've been listening to Senator Ollier, Senator Adam Ollier. He's from Detroit, Michigan. He's doing a lot of great things, and that's good to know. That's good to know. It's good to know that there are people working to change things and make things better. It's reassuring. But we all know we still have a ways to go. It's hard to combat hate, which I think is a sickness to hate someone. I don't believe they should get money for it, though, for being mentally ill. But I think that they're sick. To hate someone because of the color of their skin or their ethnicity, their nationality, their hair. I mean, disabled people catch it too. If you're black and disabled, well, anyway. basically what I just want to say to the people who are listening to this show, because this is a pre-recording, is that it's hard to combat hate. And I don't know what the answer is. I try to shed light on my show. I try to have people on my show who are doing things and highlight them so everyone can see that everything is not bad, that there are people who are working toward the light, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. You know, but I understand there's fear of the police in the black community. But people like Mr. Charles P. Wilson is a former black officer, and he has over 10,000 Latino and black officers a part of his organization, and they're working. They're working. He's retired and still working with his organization, like I just said, SB 66. So, and there are white people who are working. I just hope that they can do something to slow down. I don't think they're ever going to stop it, though. The killings. I have grandchildren. I'm 50 years old, and I don't want them to come up dead. I don't want to get that phone call. I don't want to get that phone call that says one of your grandchildren is dead by a policeman or anyone. Anyone. You know, my daughter going to the Black Lives Matter marches, I was proud of her. I was scared, too. I was scared that she'd be able to be identified, that they recognize the car. See, I'm in a small area. So, and she isn't. I was concerned. I was worried. I didn't know how that was going to. I didn't know if they were going to do what they did in Detroit with this spraying the gas and things. I didn't know what they were going to do. And I only have one child with 3 grandkids and a husband. She's beautiful. She's intelligent. She's a great mother, great wife. And she tries hard. But that Black Lives Matter stuff shook me. I know she said she felt like she had to do something. She couldn't just sit there. While wrong was going on, death was going on 25 minutes down the road from her, 30 minutes down the road from her in Georgia. I'm telling you, that scared me. I hadn't been scared like that in a while for her. So basically, I thank you for listening to Show Talk with Angela Butler. If you have any ideas or interviews that you'd like for me to conduct or people you'd like to see on the show, Show Talk with Angela Butler, my email address is ANGELA Butler, BUTLERSHOW @gmail.com. So if anyone has any people they want to see on this show, I will try my best to get them on. No promises. I can't promise. Some people are just too big. But if I can get them, I will. So just let me know. Send me an email, and I'll try to contact their publicist or whoever I have to contact. All right. Thank you for coming on. I thank Mr. Adam Ollier for coming on Show Talk with Angela Butler. I wish him the best. All right, everyone. Thank you.